provide answers to this kind of question, this kind of topic. So I think we mentioned many times already, COVID-19 had a big impact on our lives. We are living unprecedented times, and certainly it impacted not just the personal lives, but also the professional and business day-to-day activities, right? So these changes that we are experiencing require immediate and reliable solutions. So now the stakeholders responsible for securing the future of our businesses through information and resilience management excellence are challenged today more than ever. So this is what we have the first global main question. What will the CSOs and CIOs of the future look like, and how will they adapt to working more securely with third parties? So in order to answer this big question, an important question, of course, we have here with us today these 5 key subject matter experts and driving leaders in the field. And I would like to start introductions. First, we have the Chief Information Officer, Security Officer from Grand Canyon Education, Mike Manrod. We also have from Nikola Motors, we have Brian Gibbs. He's the IT Security Manager. We also have from McKesson, we have Ricky Martin, his Senior Cybersecurity Engineer. From Semiconductors, we have Rich Phillips, his Senior Principal Security Architect. And last but not least, we have from Allstate, Randy Newman. He's the Cybersecurity GRC expert. And I would like to give a minute for each of the panelists to speak a little bit more about their roles before we jump into the questions. So if you want to please, let's start with Mike. Mike, could you please spend a minute to introduce yourself and give a little bit more details?
Yeah, absolutely. One, thank you for moderating this, John, and thanks to everybody for coming out for this great summit. So Mike Manrod, I lead the cybersecurity team for Grand Canyon Education, which also includes GCU, Grand Canyon University, and Orbis Education as sort of separate entities, but one IT umbrella supporting them all. You know, we really couldn't be successful without third parties. You know, this is the topic of this conference is something near and dear to my heart because, I mean, it takes over 20 distinct product families and categories to get our job done, to try to have a fighting shot at stopping the people who attack us each and every day, and then on a larger basis, you know, sporadically large, more complex attacks. Without the products, without the services, and without partners having our backs, we'd be a sitting duck, right? We'd have no chance.
Thank you, Mike. So let's go to Brian now. Brian, please go ahead. Brian, we cannot hear you on mute, sorry.
All right.
Yes.
Brian Gibbs with, I'm actually the senior manager of IT here, but I handle the security for all aspects, physical and digital. I totally agree that, you know, third-party vendors is a huge thing. We can't do half the things we do in-house. I mean, we'd have to have huge teams for that. So we have to look outwards to vendors that are taking these risks and designing and developing things that are in our best interest. But on our side, we have to really pay attention and do our due diligence looking at these third parties and making sure that they're doing their due diligence to make sure that the systems are secure that we're putting in our systems. And the biggest thing that I preach on a day-to-day basis is partnerships. We have to build partnerships, these long-lasting partnerships with these systems that we're putting in. We don't want to just throw something in that's, you know, temporary fix. We want to build a partnership that while we're seeing things that they may not be seeing, we should be talking back and forth, just keeping, you know, the security posture at the highest with all of our vendors.
Thank you, Brian. Ricky, please go next.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys, and definitely a great panel here. Yeah, as far as my role, I'm a senior cybersecurity engineer with McKesson. So can't get into too much details just because of, you know, the type of role I'm in and the type of things that we do. But really, yeah, as Brian mentioned, it's all about relationships with the vendors and really working with technology and leveraging our technology to make our environment more secure and the space in general. And I think McKesson is trying to be a leader from that perspective, which is one of the things I enjoy about my role. So glad to be here and looking forward to the conversation we're going to have.
Thank you very much, Ricky. Rich, please go next.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Rich Phillips. I'm from Semiconductor, Senior Principal Security Architect there. And as many of us all continue to have the challenge of getting resources and getting frankly experienced people, resources to be able to do things. We're no different. We leverage our, and I'm very sensitive to this term. So third parties means something completely different to manage security services or even, our primary partner that helps us develop the strategy or implement services, stuff like that. So third parties is people we buy stuff from. That's not people that's helping us. They are effectively us. And so I'm really sensitive about that subject because frankly, they are an extension of us. We're asking them to do things that we would ask an employee to do if we could hire them. And so I think it's really important that number one, we understand what that relationship really is, because it's really a peer. Yes, we're asking them to do something, but they're effectively an employee. They are a partner. They are part of our team to help us accomplish whatever goals, meeting the risk posture of each and every one of our companies. So I think sometimes we treat them differently in a negative way, which I think only hurts the organization. Because if you treat them like a partner, treat them like a peer, they will. I think that you'll see that the relationship will be much stronger for each and every one of you.
Thank you. And Randy, please.
I'll just see if I can unmute you.
Unmute, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can't seem to unmute you, Randy. Well, but what's Randy gets at, I guess we could ask the first sort of question, looking at what's changed.
Certainly. Yes. So thank you, Philip. So obviously the first question is a more generic one. What has your working day looked like since the lockdown? This is something that everybody experienced. So please tell us from your role, from your perspective, how this changed your working day.
Finally got on mute. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Please go ahead and then please answer the question too. So please focus first on introducing yourself and then the question. I'll repeat the question if you need to.
Okay, so start with the current question or the previous one?
No. Please spend a minute to introduce yourself and then I'll repeat the question so you can answer the question.
All right, I'll just make this quick. Well, first of all, I want to say that Ricky absolutely won the best background contest for this panel. Awesome background, Rick. So, at Allstate, I'm cybersecurity, governance, risk, and compliance expert. And, my job is to align the Allstate business on an enterprise level with the law, that's the compliance side, with Allstate policy, that's the governance side, and then they're all while reducing cybersecurity risk down below the tolerance level of the enterprise. So it's pretty high end type of a role where I have to interact with directors and VPs and EVPs on a regular basis. So that's what I do at Allstate. Now, next question.
Thank you so much. So the question is, what has your working day looked like since the lockdown? Since I think everybody works from home.
Wonderful. As you can see, I'm working from home. I'm not wearing a tie like Phillips. I'm feeling really wonderful. I was telling everyone last call we had that this experience of COVID is in my opinion the litmus or the petri dish for how work can operate for enterprises across the country moving forward. If there was ever a proof of concept for working from home, this was it, because it forced people who have culturally, preferentially the disposition of you need to come into an office, force even them to go home, right, and experience the joy of being with their family or the tragedy, however you want to see it. So my life is different, but at the same time, I'm still working. I'm getting more work done than I would normally do because I got 2 extra hours a day where I'm not driving. So COVID has been a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Thank you, Randy. Well, let's ask the same question to Rich as well. What do you think, Rich? Is this how is your feeling about the work day now after the lockdown?
Well, I'm not sure that we could follow up Randy, because I think Randy pretty much said it all. No, for me, it's been an enabler to get more things done. I think the constant challenge that we as leaders of our organizations have is frankly the constant drive-by interruptions. And I think that although the interaction with our peers, with the rest of the organization is incredibly important, because again, that's how you're going to build the relationships. You won't do it as well over video conference call. But I think that it's enabled us to get a lot of things done that we that would have potentially taken longer. And as we talked, as Randy mentioned, as we talked in the previous things, I think that this is a trial by fire opportunity that it will change fundamentally the way that business is done. I think that there's a lot of leaders that I won't word it the way I did in our private conference, but I think that there's a lot of leaders that were very much, I need to have my people, I think someone said, butts in seats. And I think that they're going to learn and see that we can really be effective with this. And frankly, there seems to be more productivity. Not everybody's suited for it, keep in mind, but I think it is going to change the way a lot of companies do business. Even as our previous speaker talked about, some people are going to reevaluate, do I really need that size building anymore?
Well, actually, that's a very good point, and many companies are doing it right now. Not sure if you noticed, but Nationwide is planning to keep people safe and reduce the footprint in the buildings too. So that's a very good point. Now let's moving to Mike, Brian, and Ricky. What do you guys have in addition to the comments from Rich and Randy? What else do you have to add? Let's start with Mike.
So I think Rich and Randy did a great job of covering it. I mean, the cool part of it, if there could be a cool part to something so tragic, is it'll change paradigms that I feel like we as technologists have been trying to change for eons, right? So that is a silver lining in the big cloud. I feel like it's also bringing to the forefront inadequacies that we've probably always had with our remote workforce, that now, because everybody's remote, we need to deal with them. Scenarios like, for example, if you have users there's a lot of SaaS applications now. If somebody may not need to connect to VPN as often to do a whole lot of their job, did we just lose edge firewalls and URL filtering and all of those security controls? Do we have it at the endpoint at the same level we have it at the network level? And I think a lot of these things aren't new because of COVID-19, but they're things that we definitely are opportunities. If a scenario applies to a few people in an edge case, you give it a lot less attention than, oh, this is affecting many, many thousands of people.
Thank you, Mike. So guys, we have more questions, obviously. Let's, I think we covered this very well. Let's focus on the second question. Now, everybody's working from home. Everybody is becoming a node in our environment that we have to monitor. So the question is, do we suddenly need to threat intelligence feeding in from everyone's home endpoint? Would that be helpful, and why? So let's start with Brian. Brian, please, what do you think?
There we go. I agree. I think that now that the workers from home, they're taking our equipment home. If we have endpoint protection that's there, which we currently do, we have an endpoint protection that still does the URL filtering, that still does all the security. That still, we are able to block things on those personal computer, on the business computer side. I think we still need to be able to monitor what they're doing and what they're not doing. I've seen a lot of companies dive into that realm of having a video on all the time and monitoring every keystroke that someone's doing to verify. I think that's a little overreach, but I know some companies feel that that's the best solution for them. Yeah, I think it's an extended endpoint to us, and that it could even get to the point where we're sending a firewall home that gets plugged into end users' systems. That way we can monitor and verify that things are being secure. That's coming back to our network.
Thank you, Brian. So Ricky, what do you think about the data collected from these endpoints? Can they be used to enhance the security monitoring, or what are your thoughts? Is your company doing anything about these endpoints now that is it suddenly increasing now?
Yeah. Well, I can't really speak too much to what McKesson is doing, but I know, as a best practice, yes, definitely the endpoint is going to be a focus, especially with everybody, moving to work from home. It's a different attack vector, right? It's a different surface that people are going to target now because they don't have that network presence or the office presence where if they could, target a user or phish a user, they have to find different ways around that, especially from the bad guy's perspective. Mm-hmm. I think the data is definitely going to be useful, but kind of like to Brian's point, I think it comes down to if the user's going home, they may have a secure device that's been provided to them, but if their home network is totally not up to snuff or have very little security around it, then there's going to be other issues that may come into play. You may have other systems. All of us as security professionals have probably, and I say this loosely, a lot of us probably haven't taken the same steps at home as we might do in the office as far as segregating our networks or breaking things up. Some people do, but the vast majority of users are probably not going to go through that level of effort, right? So there's definitely going to be some security gaps when you start working from home with the home networking devices and all your smart devices you may have connected at home that could potentially leave you open from a business perspective. But I definitely think, yeah, the metrics and the details that you may get from your endpoint is going to be critical to, gauging where you need to focus your security concerns. And it's definitely going to change the risk aspect of, are you going to focus on the endpoint more, or are you going to focus on the perimeter, on the firewalls? Some of those don't come into play anymore when you start having a distributed workforce working from home the majority of the time, which we're all seeing right now. And your network firewall protection isn't a key element of that unless you're always connected to a VPN or something.
Thank you, Ricky. You made some very good points, and I would like to hear also from Rich and Randy. Rich, what do you think about endpoint information when it comes to security threats?
Well, so I think a lot of the things that are said are there's several ways to solve or to get what is needed, whether it's truly instrumentation on the endpoint, and that would be whatever device you are sending home. I would say that there's, again, putting a firewall there, putting, having some sort of MDR, EDR, whatever that solution is that you put on the endpoint, that's going to get you the visibility that you need. And it is true that some people do a more extensive configuration at home, and some not so much. So I would say that there's always that challenge, but I think this is really highlighting, if you think about where we've been going, this is really no different than what has been said and has been driven over the last 5 to 7 years, where the castle moat mentality of services, that's not the way of the world. And that's where you have to get as close to the user or identify the user, and using Gartner terms or whoever coined it, don't really care, but the identity as a perimeter, moving that control point, and that way you've got visibility to whatever it is that they're reaching out to. And then the kind of the final point to that is that there's other options to help solve that problem, because then you can do a BYO, whatever it is, and whether that's a VDI, as previously mentioned by Phoenix Now, or some internal, VMware VDI-ish solution that you could do. I mean, again, there are 1,000 different ways to skin the cat, and I think priorities are going to change. And so I think that we're going to see a shift to that, okay, this is how we used to do it. And I think that you're going to see a lot more, VDI, Citrix-like, whatever those types of capabilities are, to expand or increase the capability, which in turn will enable us to get the instrumentation we need within that point.
Thank you so much, Rich. So let's have a different perspective now. Of course, when it comes to the changes, when it comes to being adaptive and being proactive, a lot of these decisions will be made at the top level, right? So what does today's working from home business environment mean for the role of Chief Information Security Officer, right? Top down. So I'll switch quickly to Mike, as he is in that role, and then everybody else can kick in with some your points in addition to Mike's perspective. So Mike, please help us with some of your thoughts.
Well, thanks. So it's interesting. A whole lot of the role kind of stays the same, right? There's the changes that everybody's going through, like working from home, and obviously there's a bunch of things that we're all working through, no matter what job we're in. But those aside, I'd say, if anything, there's a much greater reliance and sensitivity to how dependent we are on technology. I've had change orders I was going to do, a couple of projects that we actually pushed off because they were high impact, high disruption to users. And the first couple months of lockdown wasn't the time to disrupt users. So it's required some concessions, but then it's also, there have been a lot of projects that were like, oh, we're going to do that in 2021. That now we're doing them right now because they're specifically oriented to a greater remote workforce. So I would say the fundamentals of the roles and all the roles within technology, I think, stay the same. But the nuances of our decision-making change. And also some of it is, during times like this, we can't be tone deaf, right? On one hand, I've been blessed to be able to hire and expand during these difficult times, and Grand Canyon is obviously doing well right now, so that's a blessing. But at the same time, we're trying to be very frugal to make sure that we're not tone deaf to the overall context or making decisions that we're going to have to reverse later if things get rough. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? I have one more question. Obviously, we're looking through all this journey, and at the end of the journey is about solutions, right? So I was thinking as a closing question will be, is this the best time or the worst time for managed security service providers? So let's switch quickly to Randy. What do you think, Randy?
I don't know. I think there's a little bit of both. You would probably need to actually talk to the providers to get their perspective. But I would say that, hacking and cyber and internet is COVID agnostic. In other words, business needs to run regardless of what's happening with the virus. And so, security has to secure the business regardless. So as long as the business is operating, security needs to operate. The mechanisms by which that happens, whether it be MSSP or employees and other resources, it's the necessity of it. So there's a potentiality that MSSP ramped up its business as a result of this because maybe businesses couldn't hire or whatever. It could be that it stayed the same. I really don't know. I joked though that since the lockdown happened, a lot of vendors and third parties and MSSP type folks would normally, reach out to the likes of the folks on this panel at these conferences. We're not having one right now, at least not, in person, right? So now my LinkedIn profile went crazy. Started getting a lot of requests for stuff after COVID happened. So I think they find other ways of reaching out and generating that business. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Randy. I know we have only 1 minute left. Any one of you would like to add more to Randy's point? Again, managed security service providers, how important are? Is it a good time or the worst time? Anyone?
So yeah, so just real quick. So I think it's actually going to be more. I think there's going to be more of leveraging services, just because as Mike said, the priorities have changed, and so there are going to be some things, as Mike said, pushed off. I think we've all seen that, but at the same time, there's other things. Okay, this is going to become more of a way of life. How do we do this and have the visibility, the control, the capability, frankly? And we're going to need partners to help us execute those, because again, our teams are not experts. We need to leverage that experience, that capability, that breadth of experience by the providers.
Well, thank you so much. I guess we did it right on time. Thank you, Mike, Brian, Ricky, Rich, and Randy. That was a very awesome session, a lot of information, and thank you all for sharing with the large group your thoughts and certainly your experience. Thank you so much. I'll switch you back to you, Philip.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, John, for moderating. We had one comment in the audience from Graham. He basically has a lot to say about the lockdown and the regime you can get to. But I think it's best I answer that offline. But it's a nice comment, so I'll pass it on. Thanks everybody. I will send you back to the world of attendees, and we're going to welcome up to the stage our next speaker, Eric Crone. Eric is a technical evangelist at Novafor. Novafor is a very kind sponsor for this event and actually many others that we run. So we're very grateful to welcome him up to the stage again. Eric is going to be talking about the insider threat and its potential on the managed security service and managed service world. Eric, can you hear me okay?
I sure can, Pelham. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.